Customs and Border Protection, Department of State Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, and Department of State Bureau of South and Central Asian Affairs, and friends from the media. Thank you for being here to commemorate the handover of the wooden panel artifacts that were stolen from Nepal and finally recovered by the efforts of the Department of Homeland Security. The wooden artifacts were stolen from Nepal almost 13 years ago and were illegally transported to Hawaii in the United States. Today, on behalf of the government of Nepal, it is my pleasure to receive these recovered art pieces from the US government. The embassy will make sure that these artifacts find its rightful place back home in Nepal. The trove of these artworks include altogether 39 engraved and painted wooden panels, and an additional piece also. I had seen pictures of these items before, but was astounded by their beauty when I saw them in person yesterday. I asked the DHS team who selected these 4 pieces that you see here, as to how they managed to choose the best ones. They told me they had done so randomly. This speaks of a lot about the sublime quality of these collections, which you can get a glimpse from the separate photographs posted around the room. These precious artworks are estimated to date back to the period between 19th and 20th century. These artworks signify various aspects of Lord Buddha's life and his teachings, as well as the Buddhist religious and cultural values and practices. Sculptures and artifacts such as these are not just regarded as mere works of art in Nepal, but revered as religious icons that members of the relevant community revere as their cultural and spiritual identity. Whichever part of the world they originate, such cultural artifacts are the treasure of mankind. This is precisely why our handover ceremony today is particularly significant. Let me take this opportunity to thank the US government for its significant contribution in the restoration of some of the cultural heritage of Kathmandu Valley destroyed by the earthquake in 2015. The handover of the wooden panel artifacts is part of this wider cultural cooperation between our 2 countries, which speaks volume of the depth and scope of our relationship. Today, in this handover ceremony, I would like to applaud in particular the tremendous work by both the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State in facilitating the return of these artifacts. Special thanks go to members of the Homeland Security Investigations Team, most notably Special Agent Evelyn Ramos, who handled the investigation until its eventual return. She has traveled all the way from Honolulu to Washington, D.C. to attend the ceremony and is here with us today. Evelyn, take a bow, please. Antiquities team, who confiscated these objects back in 2010. Yesterday, you also helped us to set up these panels for display for today's ceremony. I also came to know that Paul is retiring this year, and Evelyn will be retiring even sooner at the end of this month. Is that true?
Yes.
Well, part of today's ceremony is dedicated to both of your extraordinary investigative works and untiring dedication. I wish you both happy and fulfilling retirement life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before concluding, let me also take this opportunity to thank the media, art researchers, heritage recovery campaigners, as well as alert and dutiful citizens, both in Nepal and the United States, for their vital role in bringing this important matter into public awareness. The Embassy looks forward to receiving similar cooperation and support in the coming days as well. Thank you very much. Before I ask the two representatives of the State Department and also DHS to speak, let me call on Paul to share small snippets of how he worked on this investigative process. Paul, you have the floor.
Program manager for our cultural property art and antiquities unit in headquarters for Homeland Security Investigations. I'm going to go into a very brief explanation on this case. On August 18th of 2010, U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Honolulu, Hawaii, detained 82 cartons of various objects in a container to determine the admissibility of the objects in the shipment. The shipment was then imported by Himalayan Treasure Incorporated, located in Honolulu, Hawaii. The shipment originated in Kathmandu, Nepal. The following month, CBP released part of the invoiced objects to Himalayan Treasures Incorporated. However, the shipment that contained 39 painted wooden panels and 1 carved wooden shrine were detained pending a determination from the U.S. State Department and the government of Nepal. With the assistance of subject matter experts and the cooperation between HSI Honolulu, HSI New Delhi, and the government of Nepal, it was determined that not only were these items authentic, but the export documents they came with were fraudulent. Several months later, the government of Nepal requested that all objects be returned to the Department of Archaeology in Nepal. It's been quite a few years now, but we find ourselves here surrounded by these beautiful pieces, 4 of these beautiful 39 pieces, of Nepal's cultural heritage, finally on their way back home where they belong. I want to take this opportunity to thank all those involved in this case, especially case agents, original case agent Jan Yukumoto, who is no longer with HSI, she's working for another agency. Of course, Evelyn Ramo, our friends at the State Department, and the government of Nepal. As you mentioned, Mr. Ambassador, I am retiring at the end of August, and Evelyn at the end of this month. So we're here, and we come full circle. 13 years ago, we were carrying these out of a business in Honolulu, which shut down. And now we're returning it to its rightful owner. I thank you once again for your hospitality. I thank you all for being here to join us for this great celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Khatri, for your remarks, as well as Paul for sharing your that means work. Now, I would like to invite Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of the United States Department of State, Scott Orbom, to deliver his remarks.
And friendship between our two countries. The United States deeply values our partnership with Nepal and the 75 years of diplomatic relations between our two countries. Nepal's cultural heritage is a gift to the world, and I am thrilled to be here representing the U.S. government at this occasion where we're celebrating the return of these wonderful artifacts. They're really impressive seeing them in person. The repatriation of these 39 wooden artifacts is another important step in our continued effort to return symbolically meaningful representations of Nepal's cultural heritage to Nepal. These panels from the 19th and 20th centuries are treasures, and they belong in Nepal. We're really happy to see so many American institutions and individuals who have taken the initiative to return these artifacts to Nepal. We believe it's everyone's obligation to ensure that sacred artifacts are returned to their rightful place. I'd like to thank the government of Nepal and our friends at DHS Homeland Security Investigations Team, for all your work to ensure that we can facilitate the return of these pieces of Nepal's cultural heritage. I also want to mention other ways that the U.S. government is supporting the preservation of Nepal's cultural heritage. We do this through the Ambassador's Fund for Cultural Preservation, and over the last few years we've provided 28 grants. The U.S. State Department has provided 28 grants worth over $4 million to preserve projects in Nepal. This includes valuable temples, pavilions, monasteries in Kathmandu and other parts of Nepal. The United States really values our relationship with Nepal. We look forward to celebrating Nepal's heritage and culture as our partnership continues to grow. Thank you.
Ricardo Mero to deliver remarks and hand over the certificate after the remarks to Ambassador Siddhar Khatri.
Ambassador Khatri, thank you for hosting this important event and welcoming us into your home, which is lovely, by the way. Members of Nepal's delegation to the United States, colleagues and friends, you are all invaluable partners in our efforts to combat the trafficking of cultural property from Nepal, and we are glad of the opportunity to express our gratitude in person. On behalf of Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, I appreciate the opportunity to return this collection of 40 cultural artifacts to the government and the people of Nepal. These remarkable objects demonstrate the artistry of your people. Through the depiction of striped tigers, as you can see in the pictures to my right, spotted leopards, intertwined dragons, the stylized clouds and rocks, even yaks, the painted and carved panels honor the beliefs and aspirations of many in your country, like the dakini that we see here to my left, that embodies both humanity and the divinity in female form. Some of you may wonder what role HSI plays in this arena, and we get this question quite frequently. Homeland Security Investigation is part of ICE, when you guys do immigration, what you guys are doing in the arena of returning cultural artifacts to different countries. So HSI, if you didn't know, is responsible for enforcing more than 400 federal laws governing border control, customs, trade, and immigration. Federal criminal and civil laws provide HSI with the unique authority to take a leading role in investigating crimes involving the illicit importation, exportation, and distribution of cultural property and art. HSI works closely, as you can imagine, with U.S. Customs and Border Protection at the United States 328 ports of entry to detect those activities related to U.S. import restrictions on cultural property as defined in our bilateral agreements. This specific case, as you heard Paul describing it before, began in 2010 when our colleagues at CBP in Honolulu detained several cartons of objects being imported by a local merchant from an exporter in Kathmandu. Upon examination of the items, CBP officers were concerned about their authenticity and contacted HSI. So you guys understand, CBP are our inspectors, our uniform division, and we are the investigators for the Department of Homeland Security, so we work hand in hand on everything. HSI work with experts in Asian art to identify the objects in question and provide information to the Nepalese government through our embassy for evaluation. A few months later, the government of Nepal officially requested that the detained panels and shrines be repatriated as they had been illegally exported. Then, the case took some very curious turns, and I was expecting Paul to dive into them, but I know because of time he didn't. But the importer decided to petition to keep the objects, and he provided a trail of fake documents and fraudulent letters, even a fraudulent letter purported to have been sent by the Department of Archaeology, stating that the pieces in question were reproductions. It is only through the diligence of the investigators, the criminal investigators that we have here from Honolulu and our office in New Delhi and the government of Nepal, that we were able to unravel that web of lies. that's spun by the importer and the exporter. Our success in the investigation led to the municipal forfeiture of the artifacts and allow us to return them to the rightful home this evening. I want to take just a moment to recognize, and I know they have been recognized already by the ambassador and by our colleagues from the State Department, but I also want to recognize our agents, partners, and experts whose hard work and dedication got us to where we are today. To their mission, thanks to their dedication to their mission, they all helped make this evening repatriation ceremony possible. From HSI Honolulu, I want to acknowledge the efforts of Special Agent Evelyn Ramo, who joined us this evening before retiring at the end of the month, like the ambassador already said. I cannot imagine a better legacy to leave than to return a country's cultural heritage to its people. I want to recognize Paul Jarrett, who worked on this case before becoming a cultural property manager, program manager at HSI headquarters. And we're also joined by the special agent in charge of Honolulu, Mr. John Tobon. Together, they have worked tirelessly on this complicated case to bring it to completion. We could have been successful without the considerable efforts by our Customs and Border Protection colleagues in Honolulu, especially by Port Director George Minamishi, who played a significant role in transporting these artifacts to Washington. George is represented here by Nina Robinson, CBP's Internal Relations Specialist for Asia. While we recognize that cultural property, art, and antiquities are often assigned a dollar value in the marketplace, the cultural and symbolic worth of these treasures is greater than any monetary value to the people of Nepal, and we are happy that they're finally going back home where that can be seen and enjoyed and studied for generations to come. Since 2007, HSI has returned more than 20,000 items to over 40 countries. And now I'm pleased to join the ambassador in signing the ceremonial certificates celebrating the return of these items. Thank you.
We're carrying these things out of business. 13 years later, I'm carrying this into your house. How is that?